Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right.
The government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
Why are we so afraid of dissent? What's the problem? Isn't that the point of democracy? People are too scared to talk about what the real issues are, whether it be their insecurities and they mask it with other issues, or they want to talk about Tom Brady, which we've heard all day on corporate media. Tom Brady did this, Tom Brady did that. Well, when it comes to the term patriot, a football player is not my definition of what should be on the news. And yet here we are. May the 7th, 2015. I am S.M. Gibson, and this is Anti-Media Radio. It's unscripted, no cue cards. You know, that doesn't mean we're going to be as polished as what happens on your corporate television channels, but at the same time, you're going to get honesty, you're going to get truth. And we're going to cut through all the BS that's presented to you. Because the way the corporate media works is it's not always a lie. Sometimes they tell the truth, but that truth is meant as a distraction to keep you from finding out what's really going on. And we're not here to do that. We're not here to present you with some alternative narrative that is just some huge distraction, and we're going to sit here and talk about the war on this or the war on that, and you better call it this certain word or call it that certain word. That's not what we're doing here. We're here to break through all the negativity and present the truth, period. And, you know, it's not something that people like always, but I can't help that. I can't help what offends people and doesn't offend people, and I can't help what makes people feel comfortable and doesn't make people feel comfortable. All I'm responsible for is relaying true information to you. And all you're responsible for is making up your own mind and absorbing things the way that you feel they should be after you get past all the rhetoric and all the emotion. Emotion holds us back as a society. And that's something people don't realize, because I have an emotion towards a piece of cloth that was made in China that's red, white, and blue. I have some emotional connection to that. But you know what? It's just a piece of cloth. We should be way more upset about our own government sending soldiers overseas and having them die for someone else's personal interest than the fact that a flag's burning. It's a piece of cloth. And you know what? That same sentiment can be shared around the board for many, 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 many things. As I always do at the beginning of the show, I'm going to give everybody, the top stats of the night that the corporate media refuses to tell you. America's favorite ally, Saudi Arabia, they've got all the oil and all the money. They have beheaded 79 people so far this year. Again, it's May the 7th. They beheaded 79 people. Last year, they beheaded 87 people. The city of Chicago, which is relatively, the gun control capital of the world, the government's got to get involved and tell you who and who can't possess a firearm. 722 people have been shot in a city with very strict gun laws. 130 people have been killed. 130 people have been murdered in a town that doesn't allow guns for the most part. 722 people have been shot. And as always, 407 people have been killed by the police so far in 2015. And the reverse stat, because I know this is always a big topic with people, well, how many cops? 42 police officers have died in the line of duty. Total died in the line of duty. And that includes, 12 car crashes, 10 heart attacks. And anybody that wants to look those stats up for themselves, please, you're more than welcome to. But we're dealing with 407 people killed by somebody wearing a navy blue shirt and a shiny little pen, and they get away with it. And I get that they're there trying to protect the community. I understand that. But the problem is when you have somebody that does the wrong thing and they're not held accountable. I get the whole, that's not America. Forget America. That's not right. I don't care if we live in Russia. I don't care if we live in Sweden. I don't care if we live in the United States. Let's do the right thing. Let's pursue the right path. Let's pursue justice. Let's pursue morality. Okay, we need to get past this conception of, well, I live inside these borders and I'm neighbors with this person. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who what flag you salute. It doesn't matter what your national anthem is at the beginning of your most famous sporting event. It's irrelevant. We're all human beings on the exact same planet, and we need to start showing a little love, as opposed to, and it's hate, but it's not necessarily hate. It's rooted in a lack of communication. And that lack of communication bleeds into, well, I'll show you. And you lash out, and you sound like a lunatic. You do stupid things. But that's not what we should be striving for. We shouldn't be striving for protection of our own insecurities. What we should be striving for is loving our neighbor. I think that's a very, 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 very relevant thing that Jesus taught us from the Bible. Love your neighbor. What's wrong with that? If you're a Christian, then you should already be subscribing to that. And unfortunately, we don't get that with the people that call themselves Christians on TV today. But if you're not a Christian, what's wrong with loving your neighbor? Like, what's your issue with that? Like, why can't we all come together under that tent of love? But unfortunately, that's where we're at today. The big story of the day is the UK elections, and we're going to see where that goes. I've been kind of following it all day, but we're going to get into some real news now. As always, Mr. Shannon Madden is with us. The producer.
We are at war. We are definitely at war, and it's the war of what's right between what's wrong.
Right, you're correct. But Shannon, here's the problem: is people need to allow, because right and wrong is so subjective.
Absolutely.
And we don't need to be worried about our own personal, like, whatever kind of intellectual pseudoscience we get into. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Treat your neighbor with love. Period.
That's right. And
Period.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I used to have an old neighbor that lived next door to me years ago, and just a very simple mantra he would repeat time and time again: what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. And you know, there's a lot of things that you may feel morally about this or subjectively about that. At the end of the day, you're not in that person's situations. You're not standing in that person's shoes. You know,
Exactly.
There are a lot of people that are driven to hard decisions by desperate measures. But when we're talking about things like, you know, the current 1% bearing down on the 99%, climbing the backs of the bruised, as it were.
The 85 people on the bus,
police
yeah.
with their shiny made in China badges, beating the living hell out of a subdued, handcuffed, unarmed man to the point where he dies, or choking Eric Garner for selling loose cigarettes on the street of New York. I mean, that's a simple right, you know, what's right versus what's wrong issue. And when we start throwing all this other noise and all of this other chitter chatter comes in, well, the police have a hard job. The police definitely have a very hard job. And there are a lot of very fine, wonderful police officers out there currently patrolling the streets that are doing what is required of them.
But again, I always want to throw this in there for people. Even just because a police officer, and there are good police officers that are protecting us and keeping what's going on out there from becoming just the wild, wild west, you know, you have to throw in there that a lot of these laws that they enforce are a joke.
Again, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And sometimes you have people that are doing what they believe in their heart is right, like a police officer that is enforcing bullcrap laws that are meant to put a certain segment of the population or certain people at a major disadvantage right from the jump. Yeah, I mean, and again, we have to kind of look past all of the noise and try to look at what's in people's heart. And there are good people out there and there are bad people out there. And I'm just saying, let's all try to be some good people, man.
Exactly.
There's no need for all this.
And here's the thing. I'm afraid people get so wrapped up in labels. And we talked about this at length on this show, whether you're a cop or you're black or you're white or you're Asian or you're whatever.
Or a politician.
Or a politician. People get wrapped up in these labels and they want to blanket themselves in this definition because it makes them feel good or it makes them feel intellectually superior or whatever the case may be. And as I've stressed so many times over and over and over and over and over, there's one legitimate race, and that's the human race. Now, is that to say, are there people with darker colored skin in this country that get oppressed because they have darker colored skin? You're damn right that happens.
Absolutely.
It happens every day. And you'd be a fool not to acknowledge that. That being said, we have to position ourselves as a community, as a global community, to get past this division. Because that's all anybody wants. Even the people you think are trying to help you, as long as they want to create a dividing line in the sand and say, I'm this, I'm that, listen, that happens. It's true, and nobody's taken away from anyone's persecution. I'm certainly not. That being said, we have to come together as a community of people and recognize we're all in this game together. We have to stand up for each other. Ooh, congratulations, you got darker skin than me. Ooh, congratulations, you've got different genitals than me. Whatever the case may be. This whole narrative of division is what the power structure wants. They want people at each other's throats. even if you think it's in the most noble of intentions, they want you at somebody else's throat. They want you to blame somebody. That's what they want. They want you to see what's going wrong in your life, and they want you to blame somebody for it. Because as soon as you blame somebody for it, well, you're distracted, and you fed into the system. You know what? It's the exact same thing as Tom Brady being talked about all day today. It's a distraction. You're way off the mark from what's really happening. As long as you're focused on this person or that person, yeah, you just keep doing that. You keep thinking that's what's holding you down. Because it ain't. We're all humans.
Try this on for size. Once you're informed, once you're educated and you go ahead and seek education, your oppression becomes a choice at that point.
Yes.
It does. It really does. But at the same time, your choices are getting a lot more limited, and that's by what we talk about on this show daily. About what's going on in the world, what's going on with the United States politics, what's going on with police brutality, the 1% versus the 99%, so on and so forth. And that's why you have to continually educate yourself, and you have to continually push past the narrative of hard right and hard left, and this one's this color, and this one's this way, and this one's gay, and this one's straight, and this one's a Christian, and this one's a Muslim, and this one's a Jew, and all of these other subcategories, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Blood pumps through my veins just like it pumps through the veins of every single person listening right now. And it also pumps through the heart, and your heart needs to be pure. Your heart needs to be thinking.
And nobody's perfect, though.
Lifting up instead of knocking down the people next to you, and well, he's a such and such, and she's a so and so. Instead of reaching your hand down and picking these people up, people that you disagree with, people that were not normally people that you would normally hang out with. Because that's where the difference is going to be made once the sense of community comes back to this nation.
Absolutely. And I tell you, this leads me into a story that happened on November the 5th. A friend of mine who I grew up with, who is gay, and, I think is honestly, legitimately, by far one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He's just a great guy. I hadn't seen him in years. I don't want to pretend like we're super close friends now, because we're not. I hadn't seen him in a long time. We were lucky enough that we were able to. Our school took us to Europe together, but it was a bunch of people. It was about a group of about 40 people, and I was just super privileged to be a part of that in the 9th grade. And that's really what I think about with him. But it was obvious he was gay at the time, and he was in Alabama. You can't blame the guy. He was struggling with that, and that's okay. People deal with things no matter what it is. But his story has now gone viral, and I was unfortunately I was able to write about it, but. I guess it's like, I was lucky enough to know him and to maybe tell a story I wouldn't normally tell, but at the same time, I wish it's never would have happened.
That is a brutal video.
It is.
Go check it out. It's on antimedia.org.
But a friend of mine I grew up with, Jonathan Snipes, was in a bar with his boyfriend on Cinco de Mayo. They were having margaritas together. They were minding their own business. And Jonathan got a text message about that from the family. I mean, can you imagine, the rush, the hurry? You're not really thinking.
You're at a restaurant hanging out. You get a text message. OMG.
Yeah, you're out the door.
Yeah,
you're out the door.
Time to go.
And so Jonathan bolts and goes try to take care of the situation on his phone. Well, as he's leaving, he knocks over some people's drinks. At which point, Jonathan ends up back at his table, and they overhear these white faggots. That's the phrase he hears. And God bless Jonathan. I know him well enough to know that he probably didn't say, "Pardon me, sir." You know, what did you just say? You know, but at the same time, I guarantee you the guy's never thrown a punch in his life. He's 140-something pounds. Like, he's not a troublemaker. He's a lot, like, he's very intellectual, and he has a mouth on him. And I don't know the specific circumstances. I don't know what he said, but, you know, I'm sure Jonathan probably belittled them. Maybe he didn't. But what happened next, whether he did or didn't, is insane.
Well, first off, we're talking about New York, too. You know how New York
Yeah, it's in Chelsea. It's in an upscale neighborhood.
Everybody's talking some smack and, you know, just kind of flip each other off.
It's in an we're not talking about, this is where Jonathan used to live in Alabama, okay, where you expect there to be bigotry and you expect somebody to get clocked over the head with a chair. We're talking in an upscale neighborhood in New York City.
Yeah.
And this big old 6'4" dude rises up out of his chair. And it was hard for me to watch, and I usually wouldn't watch stuff like this, but it was because I knew the person involved, and it was tough. Like, it was like, really, wow. I mean, it was just like a gang initiation. And for people that, you know, don't know about that, you grow up in certain parts of Alabama, you experience what that is. I never did it, but I've witnessed things, and you see people get beat severely. And that's what it looked like. I mean, just kicking the guy in the spine and the head. Why? Because he was gay? Because there was his boyfriend? Because it legitimately started. Because Jonathan was in a panic. Understandable. Like, you get a dad through the phone. You're out the door. And you got somebody saying, "This white faggot." That's a joke. So it was started. Like, I've heard so many people say, well, the guy came up to him and said, "What did you say to me?" or whatever. Like, he wouldn't have had to have done that if the guy wasn't sitting there trying to offend him.
Well, but take it a step further, though. Anybody can say whatever they want to. You know, words
right.
is just words.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Just words. When people start getting up and start pushing and shoving and getting violent with one another, this, that, and the other, the problem that I had with the video that I saw, because I saw
that wasn't pushing or shoving.
The scuffle that I saw was pretty rough, but the coup de grace at the end,
with
the chair to the head, was, oh man, that is gut wrenching.
It's terrible,
especially when you know that this was all started at the very beginning of this exchange with essentially some hate speech.
Yeah, well, it was, and again, we talk about speech. Look, we have free speech in America.
Yeah, but hate speech carries a bigger penalty these days.
It does, and it does, and I'm going to tell you this, though. I'm not defending anybody's speech, because it's super. Here's the deal. It wasn't those people's business. And their hatred, and that's what I expressed at the beginning of the show. Let's just love each other. Like, that's what's so important, that people, they have got to get out of their shells, and they've got to get out of their bubbles and realize that love is important. Because you can sit there and analyze that entire situation. Well, he knocked the guy's drink. Well, this guy responded with hate. Okay, there's a difference in hate speech. And you know what? We're adults. Somebody said something to me. I understand the offensive nature of whatever it is, and it hurts. There's a difference between some words and somebody getting cracked over the head with a chair. That's a big difference. Nobody's ever gone to the hospital because somebody said something to them. Nobody's ever lost their life because of, ooh, you said something offensive to me, and I'm, upset about that. We're talking about a human being rose up against another human being and violently assaulted them and attacked them to the point when it was clearly over and his boyfriend was trying to get him out of the situation, a chair comes on top of both of them. That's insane ridiculous.
Well, and one of the worst parts of the video, too, to me, and this kind of goes back to how you originally started this subject, was all of the people that were watching it, that weren't a part of
They were filming it.
That came up, and not only were they filming it, but they were making sure that they leaned in. And we're not talking about, some, people with T-shirts and jeans and this, that, and the other. Some of these people look to be rather affluent.
They were in Chelsea, New York City. They had money.
Look to be people that should be sensible and should be trying to get up and combat this or diffuse it or this, that, and the other. And you do hear in the video one woman desperately trying to stop
screaming.
Desperately trying to stop it. And kudos to her, because she's the only one that had any sense in the whole scenario.
And she didn't get pissed involved, but what was she supposed to do?
At the end, when he gets clocked over the head with a chair, and then you have the one guy who's dressed in a nice dress shirt, looks like he's got some cufflinks on, I mean, is leaning in with his cell phone trying to get the actual close-up. I'd love to see the footage of that, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Of the guy filming. I know.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
The whole thing's sickening.
And it's a double-sided coin on this situation, because it's like, well, the altercation was caught on video.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps you, especially like we talk about cops and the body cams, that allows you to catch the guilty party and the perpetrator. At the same time, in a situation like this, congratulations, you had a video go viral. Is that where you're at in life? You're more interested in having a video you shot go viral than helping somebody get their head kicked in?
Yeah. And that is where we're at. And we've seen a lot of little funny political cartoons that have also, kind of proven this. In fact, I heard an anecdote yesterday by someone who was talking about someone who was dying in a car wreck and was not quite dead. And the local news crew went up there to film the person as they were dying. Not really trying to do anything to help or calling the police or this, that, and the other. Just went up there with some news cameras and, kind of started reporting on this man's death. That this happened actually at a university here in the Southeast.
And I tell you, that
everybody's going to whip their phone out and take a picture of the people getting in a fight instead of actually trying to stop the fight.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm not even going to pin this on corporate media. I'm going to include, and I'm not going to name any names, but I'm going to include alternative media in this as well. I think there are certain aspects of all forms of media that they take the opportunity of someone else's misfortune to capitalize on it for their own personal gain.
Jerry,
right.
Jerry.
You nailed it.
I think Geraldo. Well, we actually got to give Geraldo. I love
Geraldo's a perfect
on
example.
The show. That is my boy. That he keeps it so unreal. It's not even funny.
Yeah, he's a lunatic.
Yeah,
but for me, it's like you have completely dehumanized everything. If you see someone else's not only misfortune, but true just psychopath injustice, and you start, licking your lips of saying, well, let's get the story up. Let's do this thing. If that's where you're at, you're in the wrong business.
And you're talking about news professionals that now, we also have pretty much kind of bred this whole bloodthirsty public. Everybody's trying to get their video viral now, and they'll look for the most salacious things they can instead of
unfortunately
cutting their phone off or throwing their phone in the corner or picking the phone up and calling hopefully some good police that may come and diffuse the situation the right way. These days it's kind of a crapshoot.
It is.
But, but be proactive, be an activist. Be proactive instead of just reactionary and I'm going to film this and maybe I'll get $1 off of it.
And here's the thing, and it sounds so simple that nobody can really comprehend this, but treat people how you want to be treated. Let's put this in perspective to the story about Jonathan in New York. If you're sitting there getting your head kicked in for no reason, and your spine kicked, and B, you get a chair clocked over you. Do you really want people to be filming it? Or do you want somebody to step in and say, stop. And you know what? That may take some kahunas. That may take a little bit of aggression. It may take you to get outside of your comfort zone and stand up for somebody else. Everybody's all about their own opinion, and they're all willing to stand up for people as long as they don't have to get outside of their comfort zone. But as long as you're in your comfort zone and you're saying some stuff, you're not standing up for anybody. You're making yourself feel better. You're patting yourself on the back.
A few little pennies or a nickel to the Salvation Army on the way out from Walmart. Yeah.
Until somebody's willing, hypothetically, until somebody's willing to step in front of that chair, you're not standing up for anybody. You're patting yourself on the back that you think you've done the right thing, or you think you've stood up for this thing or that thing, and you haven't. You haven't at all.
Yeah.
Congratulations, some verbiage. Neat. Who have you really stood up for? What have you really done? You've done something to make yourself feel better about yourself, but you haven't defended anybody. And until you're willing to stand in front of that chair,
or try to grab the chair, or try to talk to somebody.
Anything, literally, right, and it's clearly a metaphor, but
instead of grab your cell phone and try to zoom in after the guy's sitting there dazed and can barely move after he gets knocked over the head with that heavy.
Right, and there is something to be said for somebody recording that situation. There is. I mean, if somebody wasn't filming that situation, this wouldn't be out here in the public eye. As with so many other things, we talk about Michael Brown. Well, what if Darren Wilson had a camera on him? What if the officers in Baltimore had cameras on him? I mean, we all know for 100%, it's already been well established that that's the mayor's fault in Baltimore, that they didn't have cameras on them because she vetoed a bill back in December. Despite her rhetoric and despite what she says and yada, 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 she physically signed a bill or vetoed a bill that went through the city council that didn't allow cops to have body cameras on them. So, yeah, we get it. You say things. Neat. You said some stuff. You didn't back it up. And that's the same thing. I can sit here and scream, stop, stop, stop beating. Those people didn't back it up. They kept filming. They didn't stop anything.
Yeah. Or at least catch a few seconds of it, put your phone down, and do something about it. I believe there was actually a video that was circulating a couple weeks ago about some young fellas that were driving on, I can't remember which state this was, but apparently there was a truck driver, an older truck driver, and a guy that was just driving like a butthole anyways. Apparently he was cut the guy off or something. The truck driver wound up accidentally bumping him in his bumper, this, that, and the other. The guy becomes very enraged, and bear in mind, this is kind of a strange situation because it's two white dudes, a younger, or a middle-aged white dude and a very older white trucker. And two young brothers pull up and kind of see the exchange. They've got traffic all snarled up, and they get out. And actually, I'm not going to say it was probably the best response, but something was done, and they defended that man. Some guy they'd never met before in their whole life. An older white dude, I might add.
But here's the thing, and you proved my point.
People are
exactly. You proved my point exceptionally. Who gives a crap about your hue?
What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong.
Right. Neat. Ooh, neat. You have different colored skin, or you're different, whatever. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous to hole up and be like, I'm persecuted because of this. That is true. People are persecuted because of the dumbest reasons. It happens every day. And for me to say that we're all human beings, I'm not sitting here saying negate the fact that people are abused because of these things. Because that happens.
Absolutely.
It happens every single day. That being said, we have to get over it. We have to get over it and realize we're all here to live on this planet together. And there's no difference. There's no difference.
None.
We're all part of the human race. All right, I'm going to change the subject. We've kind of been moaning.
We got on our soapbox there. We'll step down for a second.
Jeez Louise. I'll talk. I guess I don't know. I'm going to touch on this. NSA, Edward Snowden, today. How did you describe it earlier, Shannon, as far as saying the Patriot Act? Similar to Forrest Gump?
Yeah, this really is. No, God, how you?
Yeah, I know.
You caught me off guard because I should have wrote that down.
You should have.
It was
great. It was great. The Patriot, whatever you said, the Patriot Act. A judge ruled today that
Article 215 of the Patriot Act.
Yeah, well, it's apparently. Whoops, sorry, all this illegal spying we've done, apparently via courts, was illegal. The offensive part to me is the fact that
already after that it's been ruled legal, and this is an appellate court that has sided against the United States government and the NSA.
Well, it's illegal.
In their interpretation of it.
Right, but to me, it's just like, we didn't need this one specific judge. God bless the judge.
When I first read the Patriot Act, that's kind of what I thought was coming anyway. So,
well, you're right.
So, I mean, they did exactly what they said they were going to do, but thankfully it was ruled justifiably illegal because it was when they first originally wrote it.
We're so open-ended, and that's the problem. It's so
we were marching off to war with Iraq to finish up Daddy's campaign.
Right. And the problem is with the Patriot Act, is you get this so open-ended. We get to do what we want. We get to violate you. We get to rape your privacies. We get to touch you at the airport. We get to physically assault you. We get to do whatever we want because freedom. And they have used the Patriot Act as such a crutch to just violate everything. And the Fourth Amendment, I assume with my limited ability of thought, the Fourth Amendment, I would assume, trumps some bill that was, passed after 9/11.
Well, and that is one of the little small blurbs that was included in the appellate court, because I actually read part of the decision. It's a 95-page decision, and obviously we only have so much prep time we can do. But one of the things that I saw that I really enjoyed was the fact that the appellate court also mentioned the fact of the warrantless searches, something that we've been talking about, the no-knock warrants and so on and so forth, or the, people just kind of coming in and you need to go and step out of the vehicle and I need to check this. Yeah, I know you. I know what you think your rights are. The Fourth Amendment doesn't apply here because patriot, America, freedom, terrorists, get out.
Yeah. But not only that, and what you just said reminds me of the situation in Florida, which we all know I've been very close to with Derek Cruz. No. You broke the Fourth Amendment and you shot a guy in the face, and they get away with it, seemingly. So,
and even look, even if you're going to break the Fourth Amendment, announce yourself when you're going to go into a private, domestic dwelling. Hey, by the way, we're fixing to kill everybody in here if y'all don't get on the floor. Police,
But the point is, to me, is that not only do they use terrorism. Okay, since 2001, terrorism has been such a crutch to break the law. And it's just become so outrageous in every way, shape, or form. The Constitution doesn't even exist anymore. It's been completely shredded in the name of terrorism. It's over.
And quartered and thrown.
But here's something people don't realize is that the drug war led up to that because people excused what certain entities in this country did in the name of the drug war. Well, they've got drugs on them, so it's okay if we kick their door in. We don't need a warrant. We don't need this. And the drug war has been a precursor to the war on terrorism. And they were all meant to basically strip away the rights of Americans. I'm not telling anybody to go out there and do heroin. I'm not. That being said, if you have heroin in your house right now, does that give another human being the right to kick down your door? No.
No.
That's insane.
Sensible people will get away from a person with heroin anyways, but,
Right.
That's my take on it.
Right, exactly.
But at the same time, not everybody's going to have sense, and I don't know. There is a certain amount of selection of the species, I guess, or
it is what it is.
Natural selection.
Right, and it is what it is, and this is definitely not a commercial to go out there and do drugs on that level, but at the same time, the drug war has killed way more people than the actual drugs have.
Than heroin has, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And nobody seems to comprehend that. But that's okay because it was in the form of some sort of perverted justice.
Yeah.
But and these same people, when a cop kills somebody, that's another perverted form of justice. Like people keep convincing themselves that murder's okay as long as it fits into their own ideology.
Well, and the one thing that really pisses me off, cops have a hard job. They absolutely do. But you know what? I have a hard job, and I haven't killed anybody. I'm a damn plumber. I have to crawl under people's houses and play with poop all day.
Right.
I haven't killed anybody. I mean, I'm sure I could probably come up with some rhetoric or spin with some sort of rhetoric and justify it, making it, well, I just had a really hard day and I'm really stressed out and this, that, and the other. No, that would never fly unless I get me one of those cute little blue shirts and those tiny little tin badges from China.
Right. And, it no matter if you're a cop or you're an activist or whatever you are, everything boils down to you and your own reactions and being a responsible adult for your interactions with people.
And if you're having a reaction that makes you violent or makes you want to go kill somebody or so on and so forth, you need to go get some professional help and quit doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you need to be in a different profession.
Absolutely. And instead of getting a few weeks paid time off and go, ride the desk for a year before they gently kind of put you back out of the police force.
And that's what they do.
The officer from Michigan that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that did.
And yes, are the laws these cops enforce bad? Yep. There's no question. No question. But at the same time, does that make every single human being a bad person that is a cop? No. But I do agree with, and I can tell you from experience, I've met a couple of cops that have pulled me over and just like, hey, whatever, go out your way, you're not hurting nobody. He's just like, wow, what a breath of fresh air you are. Like, you're not doing anything wrong, just, yeah, whatever. It was a little thing in your tag, or they didn't care. And the majority of the cops I've come across have been very financially oriented and meeting a quota, and they want to gain some revenue for their bosses, so they'll be looked at in a positive light.
The same thing that a worker that works the cashier at McDonald's. It's the same. I mean, there's nothing different than that when we're talking about in that capacity. And I'm not talking about doing the actual real police work, the reason that police were here to begin with, to prevent murders, to prevent property crime, to actually investigate, when something like that goes down, prevent corruption within City Hall and so on and so forth. Barney and Andy,
Yeah.
And even in their spare time, because they're not doing anything else, going down to the little old lady's house down the road because she's kind of sick right now and taking her laundry off the clothesline.
And I tell you what, I hate to sound southern about this, but me and Jason from the Free Thought Project, which is, he's 10 times more brilliant than I could ever imagine.
Wonderful website, by the way.
Oh, yeah, but he's the man. And we were having the conversation the other day a little bit about an old episode of Ada Griffin and about how when Gomer tried to arrest Barney was the cop. Gomer was not.
Citizens arrest. Oh man,
that was it.
That's epic, man.
That was it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like some stupid old show, and it's just like, oh, whatever. Like, think about that in the context of what we talk about. Like, this was mainstream at the time. This guy is trying to arrest a cop for a U-turn. Citizens arrest. Citizens arrest.
Could you imagine trying to do something like that?
They
and
kill
even
you.
putting your hands on the cop.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it. You're dead. You're dead. Broad daylight. Doesn't matter who's watching. And trust me, that he put his hands on me. He had no right to put his hands on me, but I've got all the right to put my hands on him for nothing.
And I can't sit here and pretend that I was alive in that day and age. I know I've seen all the reruns in the world from TV shows back then, and it appears that they tried to give you some like literal, like actual moral code to say, hey, if they're caught doing something, call them out for it. They're just a person. Mm-hmm. Do your thing.
Yeah. Remember when Sam the Butcher from the Brady Bunch was going to kick Marty's butt? Remember that one?
I don't.
Oh, man, that was a good man. We didn't have a maybe.
Oh, maybe I do. Yeah, maybe I do. Yeah, I think I do, actually. Yeah. But that being said, right. That being said, the whole point is we're talking about holding people accountable because they're human beings. We're not talking about what profession they are, what race they are, what sex they are. You act like an idiot, you're going to get called an idiot, and you're going to get held accountable for it.
And idiots can all change. If you're out there right now listening and you're being an idiot, you can change. You can come over to the force. Forget about the dark side.
Hell, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. But I'm not. I'm no better than nobody. Like, period.
I will bow my head and apologize and quit being an idiot as quick as I recognize.
No, I'm a moron.
And I work on it.
I'm not going to say I'm not, but at the same time, I recognize that I want to show people a level of respect and love that I want to be shown. And as soon as I go off the path of trying to show somebody some love and respect and try to be understanding, and somebody like wants to come at me, I had that coming. Yeah. I did.
I got to bring this up because we're running down toward the end of the show. This definitely needs to be talked about before we end the show tonight, and that's the situation that's happening over in Garland, Texas. A very curious story, and I'm sure probably everybody knows about it, but if you're uninitiated, there was this contest in Texas, of all places, Garland, Texas, that was a contest, a art contest, quote unquote, of drawing the Prophet Muhammad. Now, this was not sponsored by the any Islamic group or the Islamic religion or any of the local mosques. This was something that was actually planned as something to disrespect the religion and disrespect Muhammad and so on and so forth. And again, we're not talking about Charlie Hebdo. We're talking about something a little bit different, because what Charlie Hebdo did was pretty tame compared to the scope and nature and tone of this event. Well, they have the event, and as the story goes, and it's been all over the news.
Well, more people died in Paris than they did in Texas.
And Waco, too.
No, a lot more people died in Waco.
No, yes, they did. Well, we'll talk about that some other time. But yeah, they apparently hold the situation. Two young men, Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi, planned an attack, carried it out on a security guard who luckily was minorly injured, treated and released. Both of the young men are now dead. Here's the weird part of the story. Now, of course, all of it sounds okay. Yeah, we have a terrorist attack that was thwarted, and luckily the two people that wound up dead were the terrorists. But here's the weird part about it. There was actually a member of Anonymous, a female member of Anonymous, that intercepted this, because Anonymous and ISIS are currently in a little online war. Actually,
that's been going on for a minute.
And a member of Anonymous intercepted some chatter between either Elton Simpson, Navir Sufi, or other parties, whatever, but basically gave the Garland, Texas police a heads up and gave them a link to kind of check out.
2 or 3 days before.
2 or 3 days before. Well, now what we're seeing, of course, the attack still happened, even though the police were armed with the information. Now it's coming forward in the mainstream media, which is completely shoving Anonymous, who are the real reporters.
They literally said days before that this attack was imminent, they ignored Anonymous.
And now the mainstream media is reporting that the FBI had warned them a mere few hours before then. Now, regardless of who was notified when, there was some heavy security on that. And then what this was, and this was pretty much dumping a lot of fish into a barrel and waiting to see which one jumped out of the barrel, because that was the one you were going to shoot, is what happened.
Right.
This was a salacious, state-sponsored, or at least state-sanctioned event to go ahead and draw the terrorist out. It's curious that it happened in Texas, don't you think?
Well, and they're saying too,
America.
Well, there's two aspects of that. We're talking about Texas, and clearly the only people that were killed were the quote unquote terrorists, and they're saying, well, was it ISIS? Was it ISIS attacking America? And this is coming on the heels of Joe Biggs with the InfoWars going on in Mexico and saying we found ISIS in Mexico or whatever nonsense that was. And I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying that it becomes political theater. And we have this literally on the heels of that situation. I think a lot of it is meant to cultivate fear within society. And they want people to be scared that.
Well, you had pretty much a manufactured situation, though. That the city
the
of
fact that
Garland
Anonymous
knew,
right?
They knew, and they were okay with the fact that this little thing was going to take place in their city. They didn't have any kind of city council meeting about, hey, we really don't need to have this event in our city. This makes our city look bad, so on and so forth. Maybe we want to consider this free speech and all that. You can hold that kind of thing in a basement somewhere instead of out in the open and trying to draw people.
Well, right.
This was overt. This was an overt situation. Yeah, y'all go ahead and have your little.
But I'll say this: I don't blame.
We'll go ahead and get some terrorists to show up here, and then we can show.
Yes.
Man, I'm telling you, this was
manufactured.
Theater.
It was theater,
and it may not have been manufactured, in conjunction of Elton Simpson and Navir Sufi, but it could have been a situation that, okay, we're going to give these young men enough room to hang themselves, and if they show up, we're going to be 100 deep, ready at all angles when they show up and shoot pop a little, 22 shots at the security guard with the vest, who was wearing a vest.
Right.
He had to have been wearing a vest. That's why he had sustained minor injury.
But it became.
Everybody knew what was going on, and it was theater. And they were just waiting for the actors to show up. That's it. It
became theater, and they had. And I'm not saying that anybody should back down or cower down to their freedom of speech, because they shouldn't. Even if it's something that offends somebody. If you say something that offends me, you know what? You got the right to say it. And I'm not going to sit here and moan and whine about it because I'm not 5. I'm not going to sit here and post 10 posts a day on social media because you said something I disagreed with, because I'm not a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
That being said, there was ample warning of violence in this situation.
And not by the FBI, I might add. It's by our true heroes, the one that we all need to be paying close attention to. The people that really have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. That's Anonymous, man.
Well, of course they do. But that gets
can't
shoved.
say enough good about them, man.
You're right. Awesome. You're right. But here's the situation, and as far as the corporate structure of things go, those people are crazy. Those people are trying to ruin us.
All them conspiracies they're talking about, man, that's
right.
It's a joke.
It's a joke.
Confusing us with all these facts, yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Somebody's telling us the truth. We can't handle that. I think it's very telling that the FBI stepped in 48 hours after the initial warning and told them this was going to happen. Like, this was clearly in the books to happen.
Yeah, because don't think for a second that the FBI hadn't intercepted.
Yeah, this wasn't.
Twitter message when it comes up on a police department. It's like, oh, well, wait, that's kind of curious.
It is. As horrible as the
research
situation
on
was, and as crazy as the situation was, and all that situation, it wasn't like we didn't see this coming at all. And I think that is, speaking of Joe Biggs and ISIS and all that situation earlier, I think that's one of the important things maybe Alex Jones does in our mainstream culture is he just starts screaming, this is about to happen, this is about to happen, like with Jade Helm or whatever it may be. And that doesn't mean it is going to happen. That doesn't mean it's legitimate. But for this guy just to be screaming, this is about to happen, and he has such a wide audience, if it happens, this guy gets to turn around and go, told you so. Mm-hmm. Told you, called it, I'm a prophet.
Yeah.
And because of the paranoia of a lot of mainstream media, including myself, I'm not excluding myself from this argument.
I'm paranoid of the mainstream media too. Come on.
Well, no, I'm paranoid of things that I think and things that I say.
Absolutely.
I'm talking strictly for myself. Maybe we're better off overstretching ourselves and saying, well, this could happen, because as soon as you do, there's many days. And I know it sounds crazy to say some of these things. I mean, Alex Jones has made a lot of money off of it. But who's to say Alex Jones hasn't prevented a lot of crazy stuff from going down? So he can't turn around and say, I was a prophet. I don't know.
I had this conversation with a very dear mutual friend of ours yesterday. This very same conversation, and I'm in total agreement on that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and they want to demonize people for saying stuff that may or may not be factual, and it's stuff that at the end of the day we may never be able to prove. But is it better to say it than not say it? I think in the spirit of avoiding some crazy stuff going down, I'd rather have some guy screaming his head off saying, hey, this is possible. Just to prevent that possibility. I think it's a buffer. That doesn't mean I'm going to adhere to it and sign up to it and pledge allegiance to it. But I think it's a good buffer that you've got somebody with kind of an audience saying, this crazy thing's about to go down.
Well, I mean, I'm going to take everything that I hear in, and then I'm also going to take everything I
that doesn't mean,
with a grain of salt.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to use a little common sense, and if I hear something that's like, wow, that's a pretty wild claim, I'm going to do my research and my homework on it, and, some of it's found on the internet, some of it's found on the streets, man. You got to get in where you fit in, and, right now with all of this, I mean, they were warned several days in advance. And we're talking about a very small, really in the grand scope of things, a very small event.
Tiny.
We had two young men got pissed off, defending their religion, got shot by the police because
they're in some country suburb in Texas.
An unarmed security guard. I mean, the unarmed security guard, even though he, didn't really get hurt that bad, and more than likely had body armor because everybody there knew what was going on.
Yeah,
everybody 3 days in advance. And then the FBI got involved, and it's like, okay, we'll send a little bit of extra staff down there.
All right, we're out, but right now Labor's up 34-32. They're projecting Conservatives to win over in the UK. We didn't hit on Rubio tonight, but we'll hit that next week. Anti-media out. SM Gibson.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.